In a clinical consultation, a patient sits directly across from their doctor. The patient nods, forces a smile, and quietly listens to the treatment plan. They state out loud that they feel fine, yet their posture contradicts the claim. Their shoulders stay firmly locked, and their eyes widen at the mention of the next steps. In healthcare settings, patients routinely attempt to regulate and hide complex feelings like fear, anxiety, or uncertainty, working hard to maintain a polite composure. When a clinician relies only on spoken words, they miss the facial and vocal shifts that indicate how the patient is actually interpreting the conversation. Relying solely on verbal communication leaves a gap in the clinical record, as the patient's physical and emotional reactions remain unaddressed. To understand those unsaid signals, we have to look at the internal anatomy of an emotion. Feelings are physical events that occur inside the body before they reach the surface. The brain continuously monitors these internal bodily signals to interpret our emotional states, an ongoing process known as interoception. When experiencing sudden emotional stress, internal pressure triggers a spike in cardiovascular activity. Alongside the racing heart, respiratory rhythm abruptly shifts, increasing oxygen intake. Finally, involuntary muscle tension locks into place across the neck and shoulders, preparing the body for action. By mapping these shifts, researchers have shown the body reacts to emotional stress fractions of a second before the conscious brain can suppress it. That internal physiological pressure eventually reaches the surface. It leaks out, becoming observable outward behavior. The face is a primary channel for this leakage, often revealing true feelings through an involuntary tightening around the jaw and the eyes. The voice serves as the second channel. This waveform illustrates how stress alters pitch and speeds up delivery entirely independently of the actual words being spoken. Body posture adds a third layer of information, displaying subtle defensive movements like crossed arms or a torso leaning slightly away from the conversation. Because these three distinct channels broadcast simultaneously, a single moment of observation provides a multi-layered dataset of a patient's true state. When a person actively tries to suppress a strong emotion, they may display a microexpression, an involuntary facial movement that breaks through their mask. Because these movements typically last only a fraction of a second, they are almost entirely missed during normal, real-time conversation. Watch closely. You might see a composed face transition into a split-second flash of intense anxiety, and then immediately return to a masked, neutral state. These involuntary movements provide specific evidence of the emotional state a person is attempting to regulate. Catching these rapid behavioral leaks in a clinical environment requires structured, deliberate practice. Clinicians train to develop empathic accuracy, the ability to infer another person's emotional state from observable behavior. This is a skill built through repeated exposure. The training often starts by watching recorded patient consultations at normal speed, establishing a baseline of what the untrained eye typically misses. Then comes the active, mechanical process of scrubbing backward through the timeline, isolating the exact frozen frame where an emotional leak occurs. Deliberately manipulating time in practice trains the clinician's brain to process social signals faster, allowing them to catch those same subtle cues during live interactions. Research shows that emotions like anxiety and frustration influence how patients receive medical advice and whether they follow their treatment plans. Accurately decoding all these unspoken behavioral cues allows clinicians to build stronger trust, ensure psychological safety, and engage in genuine shared decision-making. True empathy is a trained ability to identify and respond to the emotional signals that occur in the fractions of a second we usually ignore.